Let's get this going. We have Koby here. He's the CTO of Priceline.com. So let's give him a warm welcome. All right. So we're going to keep it pretty informal. We have 45 minutes of me chatting with Koby here, and then we're going to do 15-minute Q&A. So let's jump into this. So the biggest thing, the most important question, where did you grow up?
Israel.
That was easy. All right, so how did you find the entrepreneurial spirit?
I think it's embedded in the Israelis, at least. We have a lot of folks here. I guess when you grew up in an environment that you have zero resources, and you have a Jewish mom, that tells you that the only thing that you can take with you is here. Everything else can be taken from you. You learn that you need to invest in yourself, right? And pretty much be relentless and decisive in your ideas and what you want to do and how you want to do. So it's kind of shaped the whole entrepreneur kind of spirit that you have. A lot of people have it, and a lot of people have it is here too, right? So okay, one thing that I found very similar between Israel and here, there are in a sense two young countries. America, for me, when I came in 1990, looks more like a teenager country. People like to play, they like to experiment, they don't like structure too much. Sometimes nice, sometimes not, pulling hair, beating, whatever. So this one developed kind of a spirit of I want to try, and I don't always look for the outcome. I don't care about the outcome. This fits very well my spirit here. I'm still a kid, in a sense.
That's important. So actually, this is a perfect segue. To you, what do you think is an entrepreneur? What is an entrepreneur to you?
I think that it's be fearless and try to look what you like and don't care about monetization. Just go for it. Try to get it to the level that the best you can. And in a sense, if you look at each person of us, right, when you go to a workplace, for example, everyone will talk to you all the time about what you don't do well, right? Have you been in calibration? And everyone tells me that I'm so bad in so many things. Let's change the conversation and talk about what you're good at. And just invest in that to make everything else negligible. If you're so good in something, make it negligible, and then you will build your self-esteem, you will hone your skills, you can get there. Monetization will come. Believe me, if you are good in something, it doesn't matter what it is, you will be able to monetize it. But first, be there.
So, it's kind of more of a broad question, but you've been a CTO for a while, and my big question is to you: how have you seen the role of Chief Technical Officer change over the course of your career?
Back then, CTO was more like an evangelist figure that pretty much tried to understand technology, go to customers, get them, I call it selling confidence, that the company knows what it's doing. And today, CTO is actually the technology piece of the company. And if you look at it, company without technology today cannot really scale much. Really, you need you scale in a company through technology that enables the business. And the interesting part about it, and I'm working for Priceline and I work for eBay, PayPal, and Microsoft. You can see the differences between the companies. A lot of companies are getting established through a business model. They find a nice, interesting business model, auction, this and that, and they go and market it very hard and be super successful. But you don't need to forget the technology, because at some point, the business model gets marginalized. It's become irrelevant, some other competitors are getting in. We talked about patents. Patents become pretty much stale. And then the only way for you to scale is technology. So let's take a few examples, like eBay, PayPal, business model, Priceline business model. Now all of them are putting CTOs at the head to try to change them. Think about, good example is Netflix. Netflix was, all of it was about business model. sell CD or sell CDs to people. At some point, they got completely hammered. The stock will be on the ground, and they just invest in getting the streaming technology, the publishing, the creating their own content. So you see how it happened. Even Amazon was a business model, and they developed AWS and the whole supply chain management. So I really want you, even if you are coming with a good business model, have good technology that will allow you later on to steer yourself a little bit far from the business model, because you don't know when you're going to land. It's a journey. Having a startup is a journey. I had 5. Only one of them was successful, and I think that it's a good say. But you find yourself, if you don't have the ability to carry the market changes and the business pressure, you will not be successful. It's unfortunate because it's expensive. Technology is expensive.
So this is actually perfect. You were just talking about the 5 startups you worked on, one of which was successful, the 4 of which were failures, and the light and the mind of others. What do you think, as an entrepreneur, failure means? It's something that's broadly talked about, and it's always like fail fast. So, in your experience, number one, how did you deal with the failure, or what people consider a failure? And then how did you keep on going from there? Because it's obviously a common experience that we as entrepreneurs have. I myself have experienced it 3 times. So it is what it is.
I think that this statement fail fast was not about the startups. It was created because of experimentation. You want to create an environment that you can experiment and see, is this one working versus another one? It's kind of more like A/B testing. And so you can get experimentation into play, and by the way, it's all about technology. If you don't have good A/B testing, it will be very hard. But I guess that few things that I learned about my own startups. One of them, if you have too much ego, you will not be successful. That's the most important part. It means that please don't build platforms. Everyone is building platforms. Don't build platform, because when you try to sell platform to any company, they already have platforms. They don't need use. Create something that will integrate it to their platform, so it will be really seamless, easy. Right? So this is part of it. So ego and platform go hand to hand. So this is one. The other one is timing. Make sure that you are not ahead of the time or below or whatever it is. Because if the market is not ready for you, wait for the market. Right? But I had ideas 10 years ago that were super ahead, and I knew, and only now, before I came to Priceline, I had another startup that was based on an idea that I had about 10 years ago. And it's not because I'm smart, because we saw it, because we work in this space, and we found out that we need to have it. And even now, it's a little bit borderline, right? It's all around agent models. I don't know if you know assistants, agents, Siri, and all that. And the last one is try to apply the cleaner fish strategy. And I'll tell you what this means. I'm sure that most of you work in different organizations. You see the business, you see the market, right? So when I was in SAP, and I was GM of enterprise composite applications and enterprise service-oriented architecture, all the big things, and it was really interesting that there was Sarbanes-Oxley came out. I'm sure that you remember the whole thing. And SAP built a module for Sarbanes-Oxley. It didn't work really well because they didn't care much about it. And it was okay. There was one little startup, no ego. They built a built-in into the SAP infrastructure, a Sarbanes-Oxley rule engine. Technology, rudimentary at best. But the only thing that they did, they just get and stitched all the screens in SAP, there's a model to do it, and eventually created a product that if you look at it, face value, very little. But it was practical. Every cell that SAP had ever since, after this company came out to life, they were selling their module more than SAP was selling the entire product. Because it was spot on. I call it engineering as acupuncture. They created the needle for the pain point of the customers. SAP bought them for $300 million after a year and a half. And then I learned that if you're in a big company and you find out the pain point of the company, what the customers suffer, create just little thing. And those team that sold the company to SAP had 4 other startups. Each one of them, after a year, was sold above $100 million. And that's the cleaner fish. Find something to fill the gap between what the company can provide and what the customer needs. And this is really interesting. What is happening today, all the big providers that you see around, they leave too much of an exercise to the companies to solve. I call it exercise to the reader. You go to the cloud, how difficult it is. It is difficult. You buy a product from Oracle or you buy from other, you need to spend almost 5x the amount that you pay to them. So those are little niches that you can go and plug yourself. And it's again, you don't need to be in an ego, a lot of ego. And you already know what you exit. A lot of people come and say, don't think about your exit. Think about the exit at the beginning. If you target, for example, like those guys, a software that SAP will be your exit, build it like people from SAP will build it. So then they go, they look at it, what we look? We look at the cost, we look at the cost of integration, we look how much we need to rebuild, right? And we look at the people, right? So you want to experiment on that first before you build the big thing. Look, when everyone is hearing about Google and Facebook and all that, I just talked to Adam and said, it's like buying lottery. Have you heard about all the millions that buy lottery and never win? No, you just hear about one that really won, I don't know, 200 million, but how many of those? I'm not that fortunate, so how do I? So kind of philosophy that you develop over the year and you try to find. So think about it really in the right way, in my opinion, right? So this is my experience.
So along the lines of failure, just want to stick on this for a little bit longer, just because it's something that happens a lot when people are trying. What do you do for the companies that weren't successful? How did you dig yourself up out of that rut and just say, all right, I'm going to continue to try something else? What was it that motivated you to do that?
It's when failure is a failure, like everything else. It's part of your experience. And the benefit of a failure could be good or bad, depends on how much reflective it is on you, how much you sit and think and internalize the failure. If you ignore it or kind of neglect the failure in a sense, it's a powerful thing. You don't learn anything. So just try to learn. And the learning that I had, this is what I'm trying to share with you. My success was just because, I don't know, it was magic. Something happened, it's a timing, and people came and they found it good, but it could have been the same way, it could have been a failure, so I don't really know. And in a sense, you just need to go forward, and we all go forward. If you're an entrepreneur, one failure will not block you. So I'm not sure that I have any silver bullet to hand what do you.
So what I'm picking up in terms of that kind of vibe is to be an entrepreneur. Am I right here in saying that you have to be willing to let failure happen and be accepting of it and move on? It just seems like you're very, okay, I messed up, this didn't work out, let's move forward. Just have a relaxed attitude.
Yeah. I think failure is huge when you are attached to the desired outcome of your startup, right? If you come and say, I love it, I do it because I love it, and I said monetization may or may not come, and if it will be a big success or not, it's okay as long as you enjoy what you're doing, right? The problem starts when you start to hire 50 or 100 people, and the problem becomes payroll and how to deal with it and cash flow. It becomes a lot more complex. And then you have really commitment to the people that you hire. But I think if you got into 100 people and you cannot sustain it, there is a serious problem to deal with. The hardest part of a failure is not the failure, is the winding down the business. And let people go, and it's all friends, and all you're working together nights and sleeping under the tables, and so that's the hardest part. So then, as a smart entrepreneur, you need to figure out how to learn that, because having a 50 people or 30 people startup has value, even if the idea is not that good. So you can look at acqui-hire, and you can find an exit that keep the team. And in paper, I bought 3 startups that failed, and because they had good team. We didn't use any of the technology, but we used the team, right? We bought a team, they knew how to work together, we gave them product, and it works well.
So I actually want to jump to this question regarding timing. You were speaking about that earlier, and how timing is critical. So even on your LinkedIn page, you wrote real-time performance. We were ahead of our time. Timing is critical. So that was a specific startup you were working on. I take it that wasn't successful.
It was successful.
It was successful.
It was
Okay.
successful.
So that was. Can you talk about that?
You know, we were really, I don't know, probably about 10 years ahead of time. Right? So we built distributed control systems, super complex, all the protocols, real-time system, POSIX layers. I don't know if you guys are into the under the hood kind of thing. But so when the software was a general purpose software, it was not successful. We had one customer that came and said, hey, why don't you apply to the semiconductor industry? And it took us about 3 or 4 months to adjust it to this industry. And real quick, we created dependency between us and the customers, right? Because we install it on their machines, and we install it on a fab. I was spending almost 6 months in Sendai, in Sony. And so it created its own momentum, because you can compare, we did all of the PCs and commodity hardware, and the competitors was running on HP and complex systems, and we were about 10 times cheaper, right, with the scalability. So, but it was luck, right? And we had a good customer, and the customer has a fantastic CTO that really look at us and say, okay, there is something here, why don't, and they invested in that. I didn't have $1 investment in this startup. So I was so stupid in respect to the business. I didn't even understand what business is all about. Again, from Israel, it's one hammer and an egg. Let's go and do that. And they saw the opportunity, so they invested in us. More like cost plus, that's all. And we built it for them. So in a sense, we were kind of an external company. But we were okay to go with the flow and to accept it, and not to have any kind of thinking about, oh, it's not a good business decision. We love what we did. And we still, I had people working with me after this startup for about 3 or 4 companies. And now all of them are VPs, CEOs, some are good folks.
That's awesome. So on Priceline.com, your bio says that enterprise experience came from being part of SAP. I don't read your whole bio, but could you tell us a little bit about what the different, can you tell me a little bit different about the corporate experience you've had versus the startup experience that you've had, in terms of how you interface with the team, how you guys work together? Because obviously these are 2 different environments. So, can you give me a little bit of insight on that?
I didn't find it, the startup with the entrepreneurial is here. It's not the environment, right? So what I mean is, I came for PeopleSoft, for example. And they hire me, so I built a completely new business line as a startup within PeopleSoft, right? So I didn't feel like, actually it was easy because I had the infrastructure of PeopleSoft to have. The main difference are politics and the soft skills, and big companies start to stagnate, mediocrity all around, and you just look at it and say, okay guys, how do I deal with it? Similar, Microsoft was even worse with that.
So how did you navigate the politics?
Microsoft, I was swallowing hairballs every morning. I'm not kidding. Microsoft is it's like Galapagos Islands. Have you been in Galapagos Islands? It's very beautiful, right? But you cannot breed with the local. They already went through a DNA transformation. And it's a good or bad. It's an amazing team, the best team that I ever met. Engineers par excellence. I think that you can, probably SAP is kind of the same. People sit in the company many years and they develop a lot of skills. But if you come from the outside, it's super hard. So, as an Israeli, it was even harder for me because they are not inherently nice. We say what we want. God, we're happy with it. And because we believe that I believe, right thing will always win. Good idea will always win. When you go to a big company, no. So lobbying and talk around and then talk to people and get them behind you. This is a cost that you do it. I call it the cost of doing business. When you're in a startup, you have cost of doing business with your investors. So it's always cost of doing business. Right? So you just navigate it. I learned a lot, no doubt about it. It's kind of survival. SAP was as difficult as Microsoft. But,
so was it what was difficult about it? Was it the environments themselves, or was it the work itself was challenging?
People are smart. People are smart, and people think that they know better than you. And I think the people have ego especially in big companies, right? So your political capital is more important than a good idea. So
how can you break through that then?
Just time, convincing, execution. That's what you get, right? And I'm sure all of you, if you work in big corporation, facing the same challenges, right? And the hardest is when you come, for example, as a CTO to Priceline or GM in different places. You have no political capital. You have your resume. Everyone forgets your resume after 2 days, and the only thing they measure is how you say, what you say, and everything you say create a flurry of emails behind, and he said that, and how can he speak that way, but you just need to take a Teflon shower every morning, and everything will slide. Keep going, right?
I have to find some Teflon then, thank you.
Yeah. It's a tough business, what can you do? I think that we talk about, one thing that Teresa just reminded me something, and look, I'm in this industry many years. I see people kind of in the 40s and younger than that, and the hard part in our industry is to maintain employability. And this is the hardest part for us. Industry technology is changing every 5 years. How can you keep yourself current? Because if you don't keep yourself current, you will start to slide to the side of the mainstream, and eventually you will be out of the business. And this is something that I'm trying to encourage everyone that I talk to, including my employees. And I have one of them here, he can testify. Right?
You should stand up.
No. So the thing is that it's your responsibility to maintain employability, right? It's means that you need always to learn, and you need always to study, and always to push the envelope, and that one will help really for your spirit, right? Because if you feel that you are not current and you cannot be really navigate through the complexity of this technology, it's hard. It's hard. So I encourage everyone to work with me. Study. I will give you the opportunity to work on it, and we have super good, smart folks in Priceline that sitting there for 10, 15 years. They know a lot, but they are in Priceline for so many years. So we think, okay, guys, let's go and see how the outside world is working and what does it mean, and challenge everyone. So this is something that we need to challenge ourselves, especially in the startup world. You need to be on the bleeding edge every day, because by the time that your product will be out, the technology that you're using isn't on. So that's kind of part of the conversation that you need to do with yourself when you do that.
So with Priceline itself, you were working at a startup prior to coming, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what drew you to Priceline? Was it living in Connecticut?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
I love them. I've never been in one, so.
What brought you to Priceline specifically?
Priceline, not paper. It's an established brand undeniable. You talk to people within both companies. I draw a very similar comparison between them. Super smart, strong business people. They know their domain like there is not tomorrow. I will never even come close to that. So you come and say, company wants to move forward, right? Or other opportunities with the skills, with the revenue. So maybe I like the complexity of cleaning crap, cleaning old stuff, and get it into a level that you can innovate on top, right? So there's always legacy, and it's a good legacy. This legacy is bringing you the paycheck, right? But how to get it forward? And that's the complexity between this one, complexity of change, of getting people to learn new things, to embrace new things, and to not be in fear that they cannot do it. In many cases, resources constrained and old legacies, and it takes too long, and nobody knows, we lost the knowledge about this area. It's fearful, right? People are afraid to do it, and it's, of course, a lot of time. So when you come in and you try to get them to the level that they will feel encouraged, they will feel excited to move forward, this is the best feeling. So I call it the art of software meets the art of people. And in my career, so many years, part of my satisfaction is giving back. Giving back to people that work with me, giving back to the society through open source, through contribution, through meetings like that, right, and come and try to give back. It's not there. That's my reward, that I can go and help, because this is the only way that I can scale is through the people. We scale around people, that's all. Software is, it's incompressible. You cannot condense, you cannot shrink it. To produce good software takes a certain amount of time and effort. Now, how we do it, it's a different thing. So that's kind of about my motivation on that is.
So when going into a company like Priceline, you were just talking about how there's a bunch of legacy software that you have to deal with. How do you go about inspiring the change that needs to be done to kind of move the company forward to a place where you see it needs to be in the next 5 years, seeing as obviously they have old software that needs to run and such?
Old software will run all the time. I think that curiosity, curiosity, encouragement, push, pull, educate, whatever it is, you use billion level, right, and to move the squeaky wheels, so I think it's a lot about attitude and curiosity. You need to bring them to the level that they feel like that they can do. Like in anything, it's in any education, your kids in school or whatever. That's what we got to do, right? And it's awesome to see how people start to believe in themselves when they do a little thing, and then they, we can take the world. And usually it takes about 6 to 8 months, 9 months, kind of to get people to start moving from a certain state to another. But when you start moving, you just need to go ahead and keep accelerating. So one conversation to the teams should be, I'm not talking about Priceline specifically, but every team, look guys, we are moving forward. Either you move with us or you step aside. That's the conversation that you need to have with the people. And then there's self-selection, people are leaving, but on the other hand, I never come to a company in the mode that I need to replace the staff because they're not good enough. It's not true. And I can tell you that folks that I see here in the West Coast are not better or not less than folks from the East Coast. The attitude is there. West Coast is so different than here, and until I came here, I didn't understand the difference. It's mainly the attitude. It's mainly we can do it. It's mainly no fear. There is no fear. There is no holdback to try to do it. Maybe because there are a lot more opportunities there. They know if this job is gone. But nowadays, the East Coast is really between Boston and here and New York. There's a ton of opportunities. Tons. You just need to to do the best you can.
So how do you think you're going to be able to attract that talent, from the West Coast coming to East? Because obviously there's a lot of tech companies being built in New York City, here in Stanford, in Boston. So it's growing. It's not obviously like Silicon Valley. So what do you think we need to do here on the East Coast to bring people west, or is it just like the warm weather and no snow?
No. New York is successful, not as Boston, I believe. Boston has a lot more stuff. Connecticut is a different story, right? This is a different thing. I met the Connecticut Technology Consoles, and I met a few folks there. And I think that's something here that we can do. We have good people here. The question is, in my mind, do we sell Connecticut as a sleeping town's environment, and the best thing in Connecticut is the train to New York City? Or do we brand Connecticut based on competencies that we have? So if you take a look at it, we have, I'm not an expert in Connecticut, but we have some kind of anomaly. Every city is on its own. There is no kind of global guidance. Everyone is afraid to brand themselves because it's all about branding. So if I would say Stamford, Village, whatever, it's you're a financing place. Why don't you make yourself as a center of financing startups? Encourage, give tax breaks, bring young people to come here. You can do a lot of things. If Yale is the center of medical or whatever, just brand it. But nobody wants to brand themselves, and everyone wants to fix fashion. I hear you. But there's another common economy of scale of a state. And it didn't work that well because I don't know, because maybe decision making was complex or they couldn't move it forward. But I think the businesses themselves should do it. And I'm participating, I go to all the universities around. It's a lot of time and a lot of effort to do that. And why? Because I want the best possible talent around Connecticut area to find a good place like Priceline, which is a high-tech company or other, and to build their future. If you look at it, it's the best place for raising kids and doing good things, and so why don't we do it? It's kind of a little bit self-fulfilling prophecy, in my opinion. But I don't know much, so this is an 8 months of being here, without them only 6 months living here. But I see the difference. I have teams in New York. I have an office of 100, 150 people in New York. I'm not sure that they are better than the engineers that I have here. Actually, most likely not. So, why not to have it here? Why not to do it? But this is something that kind of, I think that we could do a lot better as a state. But what do I know? I'm only in time here. But it's up to you. You can change it. I think all of us can change it. It's again another thing. Take no prisoners. If it's not right, it's another Israeli attitude. If it smells wrong, it's wrong.
So I definitely actually agree with your opinion on Connecticut in terms of branding and all of that, and thinking about how we can bring people here. So just for being here for 9 months, you're very insightful on that. It seems to be on point. I mean, Adam and I, and probably a lot of people in this room have been working on trying to grow Connecticut and make it something great. So time with attitude, we need more people like you here.
Yeah, this is why I'm here.
Yep. So thank you for that comment. It's really perfect and lines up well with what's going on here. So as the CTO and building technology, what do you focus on in terms of deciding what will be your next 5 years? What technology do you want to invest in?
In the company.
In the company, not personally. So at Priceline.com specifically, you've come in, you've been there for like 9 months now, around there, and you're about that point where your team is now behind you and working with you. So what are you doing now with a team now behind your back, willing to move forward, try new things? Where do you want to push them to?
It's been. We need to invest in a very, very rational way, right? Because usually what is happening in the technology world, and it's kind of a little bit will lead to your answer. People hear what the business want, go to their desks, and make it a computer science problem. Because this is the biggest mistake that technology falls. And example, someone came to me and said, we need real-time notification from the customer. Okay, so the technology team looked at it, and they said they came with, it was not here, it was a different company, they came with about $50 million investment. Because PayPal, eBay, throughout the Microsoft is a big company, it's a lot about scale. You know what they forgot? To ask what is the definition of real time. This is a good example because when the business defined that real time is 5 minutes, it's become not a real time problem. And especially if it's not deterministic. Right? So what I want to say about it, if you need to build something, we are in an era that everything is open. And you know what other people do. People put everything on blogs. There are open source everywhere. There are dominant design and blueprints for everything that you can think. And by the way, we are not special. We are really not. Very little companies are pushing the envelope in certain areas that you really need to hone it to something that nobody else does. And I've done it a few times. I know you will know when you get there, right? But until there, you're not special. So it's mean that let's go and build, take something from the outside, figure out how it is. If it doesn't work well, contribute back. I've talked about open source. If you start a startup and you bring VMware and EMC and IBM, believe me, you are not a startup, you are an enterprise node. Bring the new stuff and start to build it. Go to the cloud. Don't build machine. Who needs machine in the company? Right? Go to the cloud. So you go and you talk to the team and say, guys, this module or this service, why do you put it here? Why do you don't deploy it? By the way, you know that each phone is a little cloud. Did you think about it that way? So if you can run your application on a phone, communicate with services that you have somewhere, why don't you run your entire user interface? You see, people come and tell me, oh, we are afraid that we'll be hacked in the cloud. I say, guess what? They are much more secure than you will ever be. So where do you push them? Scale, cloud, cost, build really, invest a lot where? In DevOps. How fast you can iterate. You talk about fail fast. It's all about how fast you can iterate. And this is the area to invest because this area is not yet covered and it's fairly unique to having the process. So where do we push them? Select good technology. Don't extend it too wide because the difference between having a software or something or app or something that you get into make it the production worthy is about 3x investment. You get Kafka. Everyone heard about Kafka, right? Mm-hmm. Messaging. To make Kafka, run on your environment with all the knobs and control and monitoring and logging, and it takes a lot of effort. You need to productize it, right? So invest in that, but that's kind of what we say. So we want to go a lot into self-service monitoring. The days of the NOC are gone. We don't really need to have a lot. If everyone knows what is a NOC, and you don't need a NOC.
Can you explain what NOC is?
NOC is everyone that has a data center. You need to have a room with all kind of monitors, control system that figure out the health of the system. But you don't really need it anymore. If you deploy your code, you need to make sure that you'll be able to manage it yourself. Right? So it's all self-service. And Amazon and Microsoft, all of them are putting this infrastructure in place. You know, today is so easy to come up with a startup to scale and build it on top of those infrastructure. It's just unflippably believable. I remember my startups had to buy servers, to install mail, to install this, to install databases, spend hours and hours on system configuration. Today what? You go there, you create an account, and have a system running in 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. It's just amazing. And just go and take a class online, figure it out. If it doesn't work, try again. If it doesn't work, try again. Doesn't work, try again. This is how software is built. And it will break anyway. So we try. That's life. That's our life. No, if you are other industries, it's a different story, but still entrepreneurial.
All right, so we got time for one more question before we bring it to the audience. We were talking about this outside, so I kind of want to tie it in because it kind of ties also into Priceline in a way, even though it's not really where you're focusing, but artificial intelligence. So, you know, chatbots are big. Facebook is building with Messenger, and do you see that as a platform that Priceline can utilize for customers not having to interface, you know, directly with you guys, but they can have, you know, a bot reach out to them, let them know about a price that's now reduced instead of going through email and then communicate that way? How do you kind of see, or do you not see chatbots?
No, it's interesting. You associate artificial intelligence with customer support. Yeah. Is that correct?
We do sometimes.
I don't think that this is the place, right? It could be replacing customer support, but I think artificial intelligence is more around machine learning, about learning, about, you see, the day nowadays is pretty much we get a lot of data. We know about the customer. So now, how do you correlate your customer's behavior, customer preferences with the data that you get and the offering that you have? So you need to constantly learn. Artificial intelligence, for me, is constantly improve and constantly learn and try to do things that human cannot do. If you need to do huge map reduce on a lot of data to figure out patterns and trends and whatever it is, people cannot do it. This is what I consider more artificial intelligence as a replacement of a salesperson or whatever with some machine that will answer. I like people to answer my phone. But so companies will go, and it's all about what industry you are, what investment you would like to make. I know there were a lot in the news of people, actually a friend of mine that I'm advising, their startup, he on first job, he created an AI for a recruiter. Pretty cool, but this has a lot of marketing still, right? He did a good job of marketing that. But I don't know, it's up to you.
Let's give him a round of applause for being here today.